Good afternoon, family. It's me, Nisi. I am back to do another reading over Jameel Shamsid's book, Don't Call My Dummy No Dummy. And I want to read a preface of a book. Here's the book here. I want to read a preface of another book because I think it ties in nicely to what we're reading. This is called More Liberty Means Less Government. Our founders knew this well. It's by Walter E. Williams. Shout out to Chief for calling this book out. Just got this in and I started reading it, and I wanted to share just the first few couple of paragraphs of the preface with you all. So I'm going to just go ahead and start reading, and I'm going to try not to interject as much and just kind of save my comments till the end of this, and then flow into Jameel's book, okay? We have a lot to cover. So just sit back and get your beverage, put me on play, and just listen, all right? All right. Starts off with this. I'm just going to read a section. It says, the initial premise of natural law is that each individual owns himself. He is his own private property. From the initial premise, certain forms of behavior are readily and easily deemed just or unjust. One of the best statements about what's just conduct was given to us by American philosopher and lawyer Lysander Spooner, 1808 to 1887, who said, I quote, each man shall do towards every other all that justice requires him to do, as, for example, that he shall pay his debts, that he shall return borrowed or stolen property to its owner, and that he shall make reparation for any injury he may have done to the person or property of another. Each man shall abstain from doing to another anything which justice forbids him to do, as, for example, that he shall abstain from committing theft, robbery, arson, murder, or any other crime against the person or property of another. Not everyone respects the natural rights of others. Therefore, we form governments to enforce respect for private property rights in the state of nature. Prior to the formation of government, each of us has the right to protect ourselves from perdition. We have the right to be prosecutor, judge, jury, and if needed, executioner. When we form a government, we delegate these particular rights to the state on the condition that the state will use its might to guarantee our rights. Thus, we give up a limited number of rights to guarantee security. However, if the state fails to provide security, we nonetheless retain the right to provide our own security. Rights is a concept that is widely confused these days. I'm going to say that again. Rights is a concept widely confused these days. We speak of the right to affordable health care, right? Right to housing, welfare rights, and so forth. These notions are a gross corruption of the term rights. A right is something that is held simultaneously among people and imposes no burden on another. My right to free speech in no way diminishes another's right to free speech and imposes no burden on anyone beyond that of non-interference. A so-called right to food or housing is quite another matter. If we say that one person has a government guaranteed right to food or housing, it means that another person must have less of something in order for a government to make good on that right. In other words, government does not have any resources of its own. For government to give one person something, it must take it from another person. Usually through taxes, right? We all know about taxes. Boy, do we know about taxes. Thus, one person's right to food and housing imposes a burden on another person, requiring him to have less of something. If we applied this corrupt usage of rights to my free speech rights or my right to bear arms, right, it would mean that others would be required to provide me with a microphone or radio station, or they would be required to provide me with money to purchase a firearm. The more appropriate word for today's corrupted vision of rights is wishes, and I'm putting that in quotes, It's a wish. Okay. Wishes. As such, I am in agreement with most people, for I too wish every American had decent housing, plenty of food, adequate health care, transportation, and a good job. But we're living in a time where that's not happening. And more importantly, I'm seeing it more and more, and I've seen it all along. Most importantly, I see it in the disadvantaged communities, the autochthonous communities, right? You got to wonder, why has it been, our race has been so, disparagingly behind other races? And you got to ask yourself why. There's a reason for that, people. There's a reason. I love all colors. I love all races. Don't get me wrong. But I see things and it's like I want to point those out, because the average person will just let it walk on by. We're only concerned about what's directly affecting us. They're not worried. If it's not affecting their business, then they're not going to bother about it. They're not going to care about it. And I think that's a significant more issue that arises with our governments and arises with us as a people, as a race here in the United States. And now, more importantly, we're seeing it not only affect our community, but it's affecting other communities. And it's weird that, I see all these other races and communities, getting ahead, and, housing, social services, employment. You see these things, businesses, loans, and things like that. And what I find interesting is that when you go into a community, and I don't like to use the word black, but for this video, we're going to use it for narrative. When you go into these melanated communities, these dark-skinned, let's just say black communities, you will have a convenience store, a gas station, a liquor store that are owned by others, that are not owned by us. But yet they set up shop in our neighborhoods because we had the financial means to go into a liquor store, or to go into the corner store to buy a loaf of bread, or to buy gas at that corner store, right? He's within our community, but he's not one of us. So, I know I'm not the only person that sees that. When these people come over here, they set up shop in our communities. They do go out into the suburbs and into the Anglo-Saxon communities and Caucasian communities. They do go there, but primarily you see them in the autochthonous community. And you have to ask yourself why that is, right? All right. Just want to put that out there. That's a little tea, as Chief would say. I'm on page 165 in the book, Don't Call My Dummy No Dummy. So we're going to get right through to this. It says, where I left off yesterday, where we talked about the civil rights movement and the act that was passed in 1968 that prohibited discrimination in sale, retail, and financing of the housing industry based on race, creed, and national origin, right? The Fair Housing Act of 1968 was the culmination of a campaign against housing discrimination and was approved at the urging President Johnson 1 week after the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. These people weren't Native Americans. They were blacks, the American Indians, okay? Ameri Indians. And then it goes on to this next page where I'm going to read. Our Grand Council discussed the Civil Rights Act repeatedly, and how this last treaty with Indians changed the world as we know today, okay? Chiefess Sahani Ugaldi sent this to me, and I felt it was important to share with you. In response to the King assassination, riots taking place all over the country, the federal government signed one of the most significant legislative acts into law in 1968, the Civil Rights Act, also known as the 1968 Indian Civil Rights Act. Did you guys know that? 1968 Civil Rights Act is the 1968 Indian Civil Rights Act. The Federal Recognition Treaty, in quotes, could have very well been a pivotal moment in transforming, positioning government relations with us, the American Negro, aka American Indians, aka the black people, aka dark skinned colored, aka what they want to reclassify and rebrand us as African American, okay? And the United States, okay? However, all the strides we could have made proposed in the 1968 Civil Rights Act, or the Indian Civil Rights Act, concerning our needs for federal protection and socio-political equality was thwarted by the intentional war on drugs declared just 3 years later. While many of our ancestors were fighting, they were all fighting in the Vietnam War, their communities were being assaulted and ravaged by systematic police targeting for drug crimes that weren't present in our communities in the first place. Okay? And we all know what three-letter agency brought that into these areas and now within our communities. Many have spoken up about it. It's not a big secret. You can go research that information for yourself. It says, urban cities across America become the hate child of the war on drugs, destroying American Negro families and crippling our already weakened community infrastructures from centuries of purposeful governmental annihilation and benign neglect. Okay? They've tried pretty much systematically everywhere you can think of to wipe us out. From shipping 1 million to 4 million of us overseas to get us off of this land so they could come in and set up shop. That actually happened. That's proven. That's a fact. The gains we should have been made securing the basic rights to fair housing became a focal point of the war on drug policies, displacing families and outrightly barring individuals from federal housing and urban development, HUD, H-U-D, incentivized programs. This quote-unquote war alone catapulted the United States into the spotlight of the world arena as the number one incarcerator on the planet. And this all to the constant continuation of the government-sanctioned genocide pact of murder, death, kill, vetted against the Aborigines of America to eradicate our existence through legal policy. He's right. The mass incarceration continuum remains a legitimate human rights issue and crime, in fact, affecting every facet of families' cohesiveness from the American Aborigines, racially reclassified as African Americans. See how they do that? Suffering traumatic stresses from relatives being overrepresented in prison statistics, to our children themselves being subjected to school criminalization for typical youth behavior. Dr. Monique Y. Tate, Principal Chief Nisahani, Uganda. And then here it says it has a copy of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, the so-called Indian Civil Rights Act. The key takeaway from this image is the federal recognition doesn't make you indigenous. It's quite the opposite. It makes you a corporate tribal entity, an entity governed by the United States, aka the U.S. And it says here the Supreme Court rules in the U.S. must treat tribes as nations in 1832. Here's this act here. And it talks about how this gentleman took John Marshall as a Supreme Court Chief Justice, Worcester versus Georgia. So this gentleman, it says, the third of 3 court cases, the Marshall Trilogy, that became a foundation of American Indian laws, decided Samuel Worcester, a white missionary living on Cherokee lands, brings a suit to the U.S. Supreme Court on behalf of the Cherokee Nation. The state of Georgia had demanded that Worcester obtain a state license to live on Cherokee land. Chief Justice John Marshall rules for the Cherokee, finding that the U.S. is legally bound to treat the tribes as nations, respect their rights, and manifest a firm purpose to avoid that protection which treaties stipulate. Indian nations had always been considered as distinct, independent political communities, retaining their original natural rights as the undispersed possessors of the soil. The very term nation, so generally applied to them, means a people distinct from others. And in this it says, he's got a little section here, it says, a warrior is a protector of his family, clan, and the tribe. A warrior is the guardian of the old ways so that they are not forgotten. A warrior is not motivated by greed, political ambition, or fame. A warrior will not put himself above others in need. A warrior, I'm going to read that again. A warrior will not put himself above others in need. And above all, a warrior is the living spirit of our Creator. We are all sentient beings, my friends. We are more than just these bodies. The fight and to conquer in all our battles is not supreme excellence. Supreme excellence consists in breaking the enemy's resistance without fighting. Sun Tzu. So, who are we? So, who are you? Okay? You were raised with cultural knowledge and told of the tribal identity of your ancestors being American Indian. Today, through propaganda from the educational system and the entertainment industries, being labeled or being called that you are a Black American or an African American, well, let me tell you that it's not true. And as earlier, if I have documents that called your ancestors Indians, colored, Negro, mulatto, which all equal to the same thing, and he has in these pages that I've read before in all the other videos. You can go pull those same documents, pay the money and pull them. Research it yourself. My goal is to continue to show you that laws crafted during these periods show beyond a shadow of a doubt that they were trying to restrict the freedoms of you melanated people. Those terms were captured precisely to include all to ensure that they got all the names you melanated peoples used, right? Your self-awareness of being Indian is due to oral family tradition stories, but unfortunately until now, there was very little knowledge, if any, at all of our true indigenous culture, heritage, and identity as the American Aborigine Indian. At this point, I hope that what you have read and absorbed thus far within these pages are sparking your interest and you're enjoying what is being shared, or better yet, will cause you to research for yourself to prove I am lying. You either have known or have heard of one of our grandmothers or great-grandmothers being American Indian with or without a U.S. paper trail for verification. And that's true because I was told that growing up. Here within this work has been my attempt to give you the receipts necessary to claim your fore-mother and fore-father heritage and walk proud and tall that you are a descendant of the original peoples of the Americas. And that's true. Remember the constructed history that has been taught to all of us to make our ancestors savage class of people that were in bondage and servitude throughout the creation of the American experiment. From the 114th Congress, he has down here, Thomasina E. Jordan, Indian Tribes of Virginia, Federal Recognition Act. While the primary target of the Racial Integrity Act of 1924 was the African American community, some say the Virginia Indian community as a threat because as long as a person had not more than 1/16 Indian blood quantum, okay, the Racial Integrity Act of 1924 allowed persons of white and Virginia Indian ancestry to be classified as white. Supporters of the law, including Dr. Walter Plecker in the Register for Virginia's Bureau of Vital Statistics, saw this exception for Indians as an opportunity for persons of mixed heritage to move from colored category to white. See that? Walter Plecker. Infamous Walter Plecker. Officials from the state's Bureau of Vital Statistics actively sought to denegate persons of Virginia Indian descent and deny them the right to identify as Indians or white, instead forcing them to be declared as colored. Great-great-grandfather on the Lummi Rolls, father of the Ernest Strickland Indian, Ernest on the Lummi Rolls, Claude marry me. Okay, so this is a death certificate and this is a birth certificate to show you how it says from colored to Indian or Indian to colored, how they changed it. From the birth, okay, it's right here, to the death, okay? Or from the death to the birth. And you could see how the races were changed. Well, I love it. Got them. Got them on paper. Just pay the money and do it yourself. That's what I'm doing. Death certificate, great great grandmother, says colored. Birth certificate, death certificate, colored, colored. They changed it. Indian, colored, Negro. Death certificate, great great grandparents, colored, colored. Mulatto, here it is. He's got this here. Great great Sally Peters, great great grandmother Sally Peters and Father Peters of the Chickasaw Freedom List. Colored Indians. Bam, there it is right there. Woo! Great great grandparents, Lloyd and Louetta Harris marriage licenses, colored. They've got it in here again. The Dawes roll. That's what I want to see. I need to see if I can find that for my family. I know I do. I know it's got to be in there somewhere. I just got to keep looking. Yeah, he's got it highlighted here. The Dawes roll. And he's got mulattoes written in these censuses. See, the thing about that they don't tell you is that when they did these censuses, they came out and they looked at people. They looked at you, and basically how you looked is how they classified you. School for Indians. The following is taken from Muster Rolls of the Soldiers of the War, 1812. Yeah, School for Indians, Robeson County, North Carolina, hearings before the committees. He's got all these documents in here, screenshots after screenshots. So it says, so now I will tell you the story of how you exist today by giving you your ancestor history of the people who made it possible for us to live from information found through researching. And unfortunately, there is a lot of information that I could not find. Here are my fourth great grandmothers. It was important to follow the lines that trace back to me that I share with you through your life. Okay, so he's got all the lineages here. He's got them here, and it shows you here. 1870 census, she was black, but death certificates or offsprings are colored. So see, they keep changing the narrative. You're labeled colored, you're labeled colored, then you're labeled Negro. It went from Indian to colored to mulatto to Negro and then to black. See? They literally just wordsmith the hell out of this shit. They really participated in a paper genocide is what they did. And I mean, now we're waking up. The cat's out the bag. The truth is out, okay? The point is, now that you know, what are you going to do with that information? That's the point. So it says, I was born Gregory Lewis Johnson in Philadelphia to Mary Frances Johnson and George Howell. In the early 90s, my brother and I did a legal name change to Muslim names because of our faith. Mary had 4 children, Vincent Darnell Johnson, Quintanilla Hilia Johnson, Shauna Jermaine Johnson. Although my mother and father did not have additional children, my father had 2 other children, my brother Pierre and sister Georgiana Britt. My mother was born Mary Frances Johnson during the period of the Second World War. She was one of 9 children to Norma Jean Johnson and Clyde Wooten Strickland. I also wondered why she was the only child that took Grandmom Norma's last name. Her brothers and sisters are and were Janetta Strickland, Clyde Wooten Poppy Strickland, Geraldine Strickland, Howard Strickland, Catherine Strickland, Gladys Strickland, Norma Strickland, Ernest Strickland. My mother's mother was born Norma Jean Johnson, born to Elizabeth Ann Johnson and Harry C. Johnson, 1923, and her brothers and sisters were Mary Johnson. So he goes through his family lineage here. He talks about his entire family in these pages here, and he's got several pages of information here. Let me see. Let's go down. I'm on page 187, so I'm going to skip down if Jameel's seen this book, or if he sees this. He sees me reading in the book, he'll know where I am. So I'm at 187, and it says, this would be a long session if I kept laying out our genealogy in these pages. So I'm going to preface that with saying, when you do your record search, this is where you would lay in your information, right? This book is a valuable piece of information that you can share with your family, along with your own genealogy once you do it. And it says, but I have captured the names of our ancestors that predate the forming of the U.S. and its colonization as first contact beings. I have been able to trace both my parents' lines to the southeastern American Indians. I have been able to trace my mother's line with blood running through her veins that have connection to Dragging Canoe, big blue old corn tassel, Senakui, spring frog, tussla, red fox, chutlo, five killer kingfish, anaquani. Don't want to attempt to make this last. Shashwaguia, fish killer, kingfisher, five killer back to Achalakua, which traced back to Chief Wanawanset Potahanan. Because of my research and the use of DNA sampling, I found a relative who was doing genealogy research and was able to trace my father's line back to Barry Taylor and Elizabeth Howard, Betsy Brantley to John Cockington, an Indian servant near Point Comfort, Virginia. Through so doing research and finding that both my family lines had Indian beginnings, using documents from myself and family members makes the time spent researching worthwhile. And that's what I'm doing right now, Jameel. It's just a long process, brother. You know that. The story goes, when the English seized the Catagoan natives land on July 19, 1610, by luring them out of their village, then attacking them, it is said that the surviving Cacatuans Indians fled to merge with our Patawan groups, and those that did not became servants. In 1838, with the pressure of Andrew Jackson, who was a melanated man, so don't get it twisted, the last removal took place. About 16,000 copper-colored Cherokee or Anahuia, who remained on their land because they did not move or travel to Oklahoma Indian country, were forcibly removed at the hands of the U.S. The U.S. government sent 7,000 troops who forced the copper-colored Cherokees, or the Anahuia, off their land by force. I brought this up because we have ancestors that were moved at this time in history from around Talking Rock Creek of the Consequati district of Cherokee Anahuia Nation. And I'm going to highlight that. Now, I know for a fact, according to my Aunt Stella, my grandmother, my great-grandmother, my great-grandmother's sister, my grandmother's sister, who is Anahuia. Her father was full-blooded Anahuia or Cherokee. I know that to be true. And I believe she had papers. I need to find them. I need to continue researching and doing my part to get that laid into our genealogy. Their names are Susanna Atwasi of the Bird Clan, Spring Frog, 8th grandmother, Nanny Sanders, 6th great-grandmother. So he goes through all of this. I share this information because the U.S., forced to remove our ancestors from their homes only because they were copper-colored Indians or Anahuia, okay? Not because they were slaves, but prisoners of war. I'm going to highlight that. It's not because they were slaves, you guys. They were prisoners of war. However, prior to this forced removal of our ancestors, I found a treaty that George T. Tawa Harlan, your sixth great-grandfather below, was a party to. Above, you saw the muster roll that the fifth great-grandfather, Silas Strickland, and your fifth great-grandfather, Thomas Laughlin, who fought for the U.S. in the War of 1812, which I showed above, number 16 and 17. We have a long history of fighting with and against the country being formed. Okay, I need to look up the War of 1812. I need to use that in my research too. And he's got a record of the Cherokee Indian Agency in Tennessee. He's got that. He's got a lot. So here's the fun part of researching. Your fifth great-grandfather, Silas Strickland, was a very intelligent Indian and must have seen the direction the country is going. To that point that he started purchasing land lots in Indian country as country started expanding. So that's what I need to be looking up. And that's what I'm going to continue to do, is look up land lots, because I don't know. Our family history is all, everyone's deceased now. So I don't know. So I'm looking at military records. I've attached the land patents I found with our fifth great-grandfather, Silas Strickland's name on it, and verified he was private in the Cherokee War. Remember, land cannot be sold, only inherited. So who's sitting on our land is what I want to know. We're going to find out. We definitely going to find out. My hope is that when I retire from my military commitment, I will engage the state court system to have the land placed under our control based on our heritage. Also to find out where our land is today and who is on it. The land was purchased between 1837 through the year 1840, belonged to our ancestor and their heirs, and assigns forever as tenants in common and not just as tenants. Moreover, past President of the United States Martin Van Buren signed them all. Showing this, the first document is only to validate that this was our fifth great-grandfather, identifying him as a private in Captain Hamilton's company, Georgia Volunteers. The Cherokee War was purchasing and transferring land. So this is interesting that he has all this here. Okay, he says, now I'm just going to skip down. He says, okay, so let's talk outside the box because I don't believe in the DNA testing industry. But I have noticed in our system, these companies today with this thing called DNA tries to put us outside the Americas. Well, guess what? Using the same information and data, we can tell a different story, meaning our story with the same information in a brief history of human blood groups. The following is stated: the emergence of all blood groups A and B and the subgroups are resulted from successive mutation from a basic and common blood group, which is O. That's the original group, and have been branched over millions of years. According to the hypothesis, the emergence of the blood groups is resulted from the successive mutations from the O group. Based on the theory, the O races have old blood types, such as Red Indians of South America, Eskimos. Among the frequency of the O blood group is between 75 to 100%, while in most recent ethnic groups, A and B blood groups are dominant. Perhaps a few million years ago, all people had blood type O only, which is more resistant against many infections and diseases. Oh yeah, I have O positive. That's what he said. Due to malaria of the genus Plusnum being established in the New World at least 15 million years ago, blood type O protection against severe malaria is evidence of process of natural selection against environmental factors such as malaria. As a result, successive mutations from the basic common blood type O can donate red cells to any recipient, as it's a universal donor, reflecting how anatomically modern humans evolved with malaria in situ. The original colorists of the North America were a small group of apparently O positive founders. And that's true. That is true. And he has a chart you can receive, and based on your blood type. Blood type, Group O, elites and Native Americans, implication in peoples of America's abstract. All major ABO blood alleles are found in most popular worldwide, whereas the majority of Native Americans were nearly exclusively in the O group. OLE molecular characterization could aid in elucidating the possible groups of Group O predominance in Native American populations. In the work, we studied exon 6 and 7 sequences diversity in 180 O blood group types individuals. So he gives us laid in about the different types and what it consists of. And he says, abstract, genetic studies have consistently indicated a single common origin of Native American groups from Central and South America. However, some more graphical studies have suggested a more complex picture, whereas the Northeast Asian affiliates of present-day Native Americans contrast with a distinct morphology seen in some of the earliest American skeletons, which shares traits with present-day Australians, the indigenous groups of Australia, the Melanese, and the islands of Southeast Asia. Here we analyze genome-wide data to show that some Amazonian Native Americans descend partly from a Native American founding population that carry ancestry more closely related to the indigenous Australians, the New Guineans, and the Andaman Islanders than to any present-day Eurasian or Native Americans. This signature is not present to the same extent or at all present-day Northern and Central Americans or in 12,600-year Clovis-associated genome, suggesting a more diverse set of founding populations of Americas than previously accepted. Bam! Slam dunk. He says, on top of the family and oral history that ties me to the continent and documents I have found researching, I have found my North, Central, and South American heritage using DNA from my MTD DNA and Y DNA alive in me today by comparing to ancient groups of that have been collected and cataloged and studied around the world. How can I not have many living matches found in any of the 54 countries in the continent called Africa with either Y or the mtDNA that I can call cousin somebody's lion? What I did find is royal male blood haplog EM2 running through my veins. That science confirmed the royal haplog group of the Ramses III to be EM2, proven by geneticists, unless this king was a part of the American diaspora and not the continent called Africa. Somebody's lying. Further, I have scientific proof that shows large segments of the 4cm or above that match me with ancient specimens matching the Clovis child, which are specimens from 12,500 years ago. Also include matches to the Paleo Eskimo in the Greenland from 4,000 years ago, and matches to the Kennewick men, which are from 8,500 years ago, including a match to BOT 1517 in Brazil, which are from 9,000 years ago, which tied me and my ancestors to the Western Hemisphere. So he's got paperwork and blood work. A few years ago, before people, aka in parentheses, corporations, started changing the way we interpretate the data as a way to continue to hide the truth that was starting to surface, that we were not brought to the Americas, that we were already here, but in fact, the descendants of the people that were colonized on their own land. I tested my DNA against 12,600-year-old Clovis associated genome that was made available, and you will see that every one of my chromosomes, which 22, has associated genome to each of the Clovis 22 chromosomes with the start and end location identified. There is no way that our DNA, would match the Clovis Ensic child if our DNA, blood, were not American. This tells me, and hopefully you, that we are from here in the Americas and that our blood is ancient, at a minimal 12,600-year-old ancient to the continent. Kick rocks. And it's true. I know that you have heard the stories of how your DNA will match you to all the wonderful places on this earth. Again, I ask you, use a common sense approach to example I am about to show you here. The DNA test can identify related individuals who share a common maternal or paternal ancestor, and even where in the world people with our genetic signature live today. If your test is with a live or deceased person, remember we all have 23 pairs of chromosomes for a total of 46 chromosomes from our parents. People meet and procreate because our blood is alive, and it should be able to go back an average of 20 generations through DNA. Finding relatives and hopefully finding a common ancestor. If you were related to a live or deceased person, there would be a chromosome match somewhere in there. Through DNA, I found these current surnames in my search. Okay, so he goes through this. And he gives a 12,600-year Clovis sample recognized by the U.S. and the science community. There is no way that mine or our DNA would match 37 segments to the sampling if the blood was not alive and running through my veins to give 48.38% full identical between this sample and mine. Just a common sense look at things. So he's given the genomes, he's got the charts here and things like that to show how his blood ties out in these DNA tests. And I have not taken it, and I won't take a DNA test. I don't believe them. I'll do the paperwork genealogy. And he just talks about how it matches up and how it ties in with his descendants from different areas of the United States or the Americas, who his descendants are, what the genome matches. I'm going to skip through this. Okay. In this section on page 213, he does say something. I am bringing this up because if the DNA does not link you to a live, living, breathing person that falls in one of the cousin categories above, it's all bullocks. DNA will determine whether a genetic relationship exists between people. It will not tell you what your race is. Only your family history can do that. Through the stories told and genealogy research conducted. I'm sharing these next few images because there are living, breathing people that share the blood of our ancestors around the world from both my, Y, and mtDNA. There is only one person that linked to this country of Mozambique, which I question. I reached out to that person. Lightly pigmented and they stated empathetically that their relative was from Mozambique. I was told that this person was their late relative who he said was dead. In addition, she was born in the late 1800s and was a slave from Mozambique at that point. I said, okay, that is your story because I have shared my thoughts on slavery in the previous passages above. You know what I thought, right? Remember, Negro importation was outlawed in 1808, okay? And that's importation for there. And then he gives a chapter, he gives a section of how his genomes match up throughout the world here. And he's got the different groups. Genetic evidence for two founding populations of Americas. Me from the Spirit. Okay. And he's got the 12 universal laws in here. Treaties in 1866 that included our people. Cherokee, Creek Nation, Seminole Nation, Choctaw, Chickasaw. Treaty of 1866 guarantees whereas ethnic black Indians had been or continue to be illegally exiled, disenfranchised, and alienated from their treaty rights. Only through studying the treaties and the Constitution will you truly know, the place you hold in this country. Okay, and he's got a picture of an American Indian who was a Thoughtness, who's melanated. Fair use of the material in the educational settings for descendants of the American Indian. Images through time to show our people were here. So he's got, I don't like to use the word black. He's got melanated people in here. In the Western Hemisphere once lived a great people that today not many of the descendants truly know about them. And they have been disconnected from their true past because of our educational systems that have been put in place that teach false teachings and revise events to romanticize the destruction of a whole people that stretched from coast to coast. Now, back here where I skipped on page 218, it says, let me go back because I feel like I need to read this part. It says, me from spirit, I have always lived by a code to always do the right thing over the years. I have realized that my spirit is that of the giver. I live by loyalty and trust. Once I lose trust and loyalty in a person, it will never be given back to anyone. The hardest part of my life has been or is being okay with people that I know in my spirit do not give a flying fuck about me, but I'm continue to be there for anyone that has asked for my help because of my spirit. People who they are there is nothing I can do to make them loyal to me or you, because loyalty is an internal choice. Either you have that trait or you do not. And I have met some selfish people in my lifetime. You can give everything you have to people and still be made to feel as if things you have done were of no value. Psychology is defined through personality types and has assigned three labels to the givers, the takers, and the matchers, which are defined this way. Givers seek out ways to be helpful and give to others. Okay. Matchers play this for that. They reciprocate and expect reciprocity. And takers focus on getting as much as possible from others without giving anything in return. The energy you receive from people is real. Do not discount it. We are 3D beings made up of matter and the waves of energy that are put out into the universe, which can either be positive or negative. Learning to detect what energy you are receiving is crucial in your emotional balance because feeling the vibes in the air allows you the opportunity to diffuse an unseen situation brewing in your world, thus getting in touch with your inner self, i.e. your feelings. You can control yourself when you feel the negativity from another, that you can slowly disassociate yourself from them, not allowing yourself to be drawn into whatever negative spectrum they may want to be devolving into. I have spent countless years developing the realization that people are selfish, self-absorbed, ungrateful beings. I spent a lifetime trying to be one with people and have found that if you choose a person and that person is not your best friend, I make that statement by saying that they may be your best friend, but you are not theirs because they crave others to fill the void. You will find that you will be alone most of the time while they prioritize things that are important to them in their life, whether it is a shared life or not. If they cheated to be with you, they will cheat when they are with you. This has been unfortunately taught to me over and over, time and time again. Trust your inner spirit. If you feel they are against you, they are. Listen to your inner self. Heed my warning. Please don't waste your time and energy when you feel the selfishness of another. Just get away. Just get as far away from them as you can, because actions always speak louder than words. Pay attention to the visual signs that are all around you. They will help you guide your emotional balance. Remember, if it quacks like a duck, god damn it, it is a duck. Remember, people say one thing, but their actions say and do another. So just run away. Do not waste your time. The old saying, don't believe none of what you hear and half of what you see, because illusions are real. Please always remember this. I love you all. I'm proud of you all. I'm sorry if I feel like I failed you. Each one of you are very important to me. Remember, it's okay to cry if you made a mistake. It's okay. And above all, it's okay to be scared. I pray that the information I share makes you want to come together as a bloodline family to build a tomorrow full of love and abundance. I really want you guys to come together as a family unit to build a future that will benefit you and the future offspring. Words to live by. And he gives the 12 universal laws of the universe. Now, he wrote this book for his family. In the beginning of these videos that I've shared, he did this for his bloodline, to have a foundation, right? And so he's done an eloquently job. He's got a lot of drawings and pictures of our people. And here's a black, I hate to say black, but I'm going to say it in this video, a Foxness or melanated, dark-skinned person here who's Indian, who's native. You can see him. He's probably a little bit darker than me. Images from coast to coast that show our people were here. Okay. We are the only people on the planet that have been oppressed by people who have never beaten them in battle, but have beaten them through illusion and false history. I got to highlight that, Mom. And I'm going to wrap this up because I know I've been on here a minute with you guys, and I appreciate you guys who are hanging out with me and listening to me read. It says, this was done by ungodly being, both melanated and pale, that walks amongst us, always looking for ways to your destruction. I speak of beings that, through illusions and falsehoods, have no intent to live in harmony with Mother, you, or respecting the spirit of life. Look to the actions of people as you guide, and remember people as your guide, and remember to believe in half of what you see and none of what you hear. War crimes or war comes in many forms, and your ancestors and now you live in constant fear of death at the hands of a proven barbarian who hate just to hate and kill people like you because of the rich brown skin you dwell in. In this country, just being brown is proven a death sentence. And I mean just being in the same place with someone that does not value your existence and has the capability to take your life. I have tried to use this information shared to show you what has been hidden in plain sight. Please get back to our original nature and look to the Great Spirit to guide your life from within. Let nature show you what truly exists, and don't be a victim to illusions. Remember, actions speak louder than words. And he gives a definition of the barbarian. Learning, all have learned about history and his story. I can say that to my future generations, if you do not truly pay attention to the past, the possibility of repeating it is probable. Understanding who you are and how to apply the treaties and the Constitution is paramount to the survival of our bloodline. I know I am a descendant of the original soul beings of the Western Hemisphere, the living blood of the Naga Maya. I hold no hate in my heart for knowing this past, or better yet, living the present, and have dedicated my entire life to my profession of arms to always be ready. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, so I put my trust in the Mother that she will continue to vibrate and grow life through and around me. I put my hope and dreams in the Grandmother, that she will watch over me while I rest and illuminate my spirit with vision. I put my trust and desire in Grandfather, that he will continue to shine bright to illuminate and kill all viruses that have been put here to destroy us. I stand with my feet in the creeks and streams, trusting to be cleansed through the constant current of life's electricity in abundance. We always have to get sunshine, sunlight. We got to ground. That's a given. I breathe with the spirit of my ancestors that continue to rest and live through me in peace, knowing that I know my purpose as a Naga, Maya, and with these blessings in sight, I've been given Pura Vida, or Pura Vida. Get on the frequency of the earth and learn real history and civics to give our future generations a real chance at life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, because they are trying to erase real history, or better yet, rewrite what was really has happened to the ancestors that make a suspect class of people within our own borders. Beloved, your life was and is my purpose, as I have tried to capture and share information within these pages, to bookmark and reference things to make you rethink what was taught to us, all purposely to disconnect us from the greatness of our foreparents that thrived on this hemisphere. You are not a suspect class of people. Today, tell the universe, I do not consent to any of this shit. I'm done with all of this. All I want is love. All I want is righteousness. And all I want is to do good from our bloodline. Breathe. Hawa. Wake up, Nagida. Written in love, peace, and light. Darida, Danaida, until we meet again. And that's Isaiah 60:22. Now back here, he's got tons of pages. An Indian is an Indian regardless of the degree of Indian blood or which little government card they do or do not possess. Black elk. I am an Indian. If you have one drop of Indian blood in your veins, then you are an Indian. And that's us. Man, this dude is darker than me. I don't know if you can see him on camera. Look at this. This is for educational purposes only, people. Educational purposes only while I'm sharing these images. He's got tons of pictures of our melanated brothers and sisters that are here. Here we got another one. I love this one. Look. Clearly you can see how these people are my complexion or darker. We've got tons of women, long, beautiful long hair, which I cut all mine off. Here's another picture. I'll show you this. Look at their ponytails. Again, this is educational purposes only, to discuss what has been done and show you pictures. He's got tons and tons of pictures. To the visitor in the South, the physical characteristics of many Negro slaves bore witness to their Indian origin. John Hugo Johnston, 1937, Virginia State University. Yeah, he's got tons of pictures of our people. And let's see. Let me see. I think I finished it. He's just got tons of pictures in the back. And yeah, he's got at least 60 pages maybe. I don't know. It's a good, decent amount of pictures in the very back. Look at this one. Yeah, so he's got JFK meeting an indigenous aborigine. Tons of them on horses. He's got a ton of pictures back here. Elvis meeting us. Yeah. Afros. They got afros. And then he's got the references in the back. So I finished this book today, you guys. Video's at 53 minutes and 18 seconds, but I wanted to make sure you all knew I finished this book. So what we've done is we've read through pretty much the entire book. The only thing I didn't read at the end were, I think, the 12 laws at the back. You know what I mean? Universal laws, universal spirit. I didn't read that, but I did go through pretty much extensively the entire book, and it's a wonderful, wonderful written, phenomenal book. I will definitely have to leave my review on Amazon. I was supposed to do that last weekend, but I got busy. I appreciate you guys sitting with me and listening to me read. I appreciate the time that we spent together today, and I hope this has been encouraging and uplifting to you and sharing information with you that each and every Afatanus or melanated, indigenous, aborigine, Niji, black, African American, Negro, colored, mulatto person here in the United States needs to pick up this book. They need to pick up this book. And you need to lay in your genealogy in this book and give this as credence to what has been done to our people. Now, he's got plenty of laws in here, legislative court cases and things like that. And he's written it out very nicely. Now, he does have a part two that I will probably jump on here sometime this weekend and read to you guys. I did say that I was going to do that. Jameel reached out to me and asked me if I had time to review that. So I'm definitely going to do that here in the next day or two. And then I'll probably read through that and maybe jump on and do a video, a short read on that. But I am going to get with Chief Red Wolf as well as Jameel, Original Long Wolf, and probably Delusions of Humanity and a few other folks and see if we can't do a podcast. Thank you for joining me, you guys. And you have a wonderful afternoon. And remember, be the change you want to see all around this planet, because it is up to you and I to make a positive change in this ethos. It is up to us to stand together as one and know our place and know who we are. I love you guys. Peace.